Everybody shoveled out.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, give me 1 second.
Evening, Dan.
Yeah, I know it's 7 o'clock, but maybe just wait a few minutes for Terrence.
Yeah.
In honor of our AFC champions. Notice my background.
Ooh.
Nice. Man, that was one sloppy game, huh?
Listen,
The
who won?
W.
You take the W.
Listen, Celtics had a big win Friday. Bruins had a huge win Saturday. Pats win. Snow day. I'm running a hot streak here, everybody.
So you know what? It'll be unsurprising this coming from my son, but what a misanthrope my son is. Our former neighbor, who happened to be the name of Mike Rosenberg, he's a cardiologist, moved back home to Denver, and he's a big
Colorado, that's right.
Broncos fan and a really good guy. But Sam texted in the family chat. I hope he was at the game last night. I'm like, you are just such a miserable. He gets it from his mother. That's all I'll say. Um,
Obviously.
yes. Any signs of Terrence, Matt?
I just sent him a text just to check in to let him know.
Thank you, members of the board. Yes, Dave Manugian, Public Works Director. I have a couple items before you. The first is the modification of an easement at 5 Lane. This is related to updated traffic signals at Great Road and Loomis. While doing some of the work, we encountered underground utilities that were not part of the original survey, and so needed to tweak the existing easement with 5 Lane for the base of one of the new traffic signals. So this is, we've worked with the property owner and they've graciously granted us this easement. So we're asking the select board to accept it. This new changed easement is approximately 55 square feet. It's really just enough area to get a base for the traffic signal that we need.
So I'll ask one question. I think I know the answer. Is this has nothing to do with that supposed hidden underground vault that wasn't?
That is correct.
Thank you. Sean, any questions from you?
No, it's pretty straightforward for me.
Bopa, any for you?
No.
Dan,
All set.
Terrence.
All set.
Okay. Would someone like to make the motion?
I hereby move that the Select Board of the Town of Bedford amend the permanent signal easement for the purposes of establishing, constructing, operating, and maintaining traffic signal equipment at 5 Lane Avenue as shown on the plan entitled Easement Plan of Land and dated December 5th, 2025. And further, to authorize and direct the town manager to take all actions required to implement the vote on this motion.
Second.
Okay, second by Terrence. We're going to take a roll call vote. Paul is an aye. Sean?
Aye.
Bopa?
Aye.
Terrence?
Aye.
And Dan?
Aye.
Excellent. What else you got for us, Dave?
Great. Next on the agenda is our two vehicles for police department. This is replacement of P6 and P9, and we've worked with the police. The police are very conscientious of our energy net zero policies regarding vehicles. These are hybrids. We were able to replace two existing hybrids with two new hybrids. And so we're requesting that the board approve these contracts.
I'll start with the dumb question of the evening. Are EVs just not a thing for police type vehicles of this type?
Correct. We're just not there yet with EVs. Typically, their vehicles are running many engine hours, and so the hybrids have been a great compromise. We continue to look at EVs, but we're just not there yet.
Not there yet. Okay. Sean, any questions?
I actually had the same question you did, so
Okay.
nothing else.
We should almost name that in honor of former select board members and say it's a, we won't say who question. And that's a compliment to the former members. Bopa.
Yes, so is it normal that we're not able to trade in these vehicles? And then what are we doing with the existing vehicles because we can't do the trade-in?
Sure. So in this case, we're working with the town manager and the police department. We have identified a need for additional vehicles for the police department, and looking at the existing vehicles versus purchasing two new, we felt that the most cost-effective way was in fact to hold on to these trades. These two vehicles have been run pretty long and pretty hard. We got initial estimates for the trades and they were in the low thousands of dollars. And so we don't anticipate needing a lot of money to cover the value of those trades. And we do see some value in holding on to these. Matt, anything you want to add?
Yeah, the chief had just requested that rather than trade them in for only a few $1,000s each, they would no longer be frontline cars, but a school resource officer who now has a therapy dog would be able to have a vehicle, which it is best practice for school resource officers to have a marked vehicle in front of the schools when they're on duty. And the same thing with our Middlesex Community College SRO. Both those officers, did not have a police vehicle. So they will not be putting on miles like a normal police vehicle would be. They'd essentially go from the station to the school and be parked there for the day. So, there'd be a presence there. And yeah, the trade-in value is very low. So we did talk to David about whether there'd be enough maintenance money in the budget because the older vehicles do require a bit more maintenance, but we think we're okay at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, anything?
Nope.
And Terrence?
No.
Would someone, Matt, can you scroll down to the
Sorry.
motion?
Oh, wait, yeah. Here's one. If
Oh,
then
yeah,
the other
there it is
one.
right in front of me. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Would someone kindly,
So I move that the board vote to approve the purchase of one Ford Police Interceptor AWD hybrid with equipment to Colonial Municipal Group at 61 Camelot Drive, Plymouth, Massachusetts 02360 at the net bid price of $187.40 and authorize the town manager to sign on our behalf.
Second.
okay, Paul is an aye. Sean?
Aye.
Bopa?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Terrence?
Yes.
It is passed. The next one.
I also move the board vote to approve the purchase of one Ford PUI Interceptor police responder with equipment to Colonial Municipal Group at 61 Camelot Drive, Plymouth, Massachusetts 02360 at the net bid price of $45,413.80 and authorize the town managers to sign on our behalf.
Second.
Okay, Paul is an aye. Sean?
Aye.
Bopa?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Terrence?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. And Matt, do we have some more business we can take care of with Dave now?
Great. We do have two amended items if the board wants to hear them today. You haven't had much time to look at them, but it's just a sewer deferral request, which is very procedural, and a culvert replacement memo. The board wants to push these off 2 weeks, we
So-
can do that, but I did add them late today. if you
Sure.
wanted to
So
hear
I
them.
will ask, I'm happy to go forward with it, but if any, and one member wants to wait until the next time, perfectly fine with me. Does anyone wish to hold it off?
We'll
Hearing
let
no
the
one-
reg-
Yeah, I hadn't seen them, but I'm okay with going forward because they do seem pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and then and if we put it off, will it? I assume that it would delay the work, correct?
Correct.
All right,
So,
Dave, why don't
yeah.
we hear it? And if someone doesn't like it, they can raise their voice again.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, the first one
Please
on
take your
the
seats.
board now is.
Can I
the
get a
Shawshing
little more
Road-
volume on this microphone, please?
Mr. Chair, do you want me to keep speaking or how do you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Matt, it was that Dan
Yeah.
Hukan here?
For being present, I call the meeting to order.
That's Dave Powell.
Moment,
That's-
we have not opened an overflow room. There are plenty of seats available in this room, so I
Why
would
is
ask
town
everyone
meeting YouTube
Why-
playing right
I-
now?
Why is
For
his
visitor.
audio in here?
please
Is
come
that-
to the bottom right corner here. That's the only allocated place for visitors.
What in the world is happening?
Possible that we get a late arrival and we have to open up the overflow room and adjust the organization of the meeting. Deal with that at that point.
Hopefully, the town manager can mute whoever's got that going on.
If we have the overflow meeting room open, we will.
We don't want to relive town meeting all over.
No, I think we're good.
That's
Once-
a
Not
good
the
one,
last
John.
one.
I'm certain I don't have it playing. Is anyone?
I think
not
it
sure
looks
they
like
can
Mr.
fix it
Hansen's
and-
dealing
No.
with it right now.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. I think it was coming from your computer, Terrence. So I muted you for the time being.
I have examined it.
Huh.
Terrence is watching town meeting. Now we got it.
Terrence, just wave your hands wildly if you want to speak.
I don't. think
Town
it's
meeting
not,
is a
but-
legislative.
Oh, we actually should take care of this because Terrence needs to participate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Money. Tonight, great, advocate our positions.
I
and
will
make
log
decisions.
out and log back in. and
Okay,
see.
we'll
And the moderator, Michael
play the
Bacharian.
Jeopardy music while you do that.
That is really bizarre.
Yeah.
It was unmistakably Dave Powell. I'm like, Dave Powell, where are you?
Yeah, it was the intro to town meeting.
Mr. Chair, could I take this moment for a quick public service announcement?
Oh, yes, please do, David.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the plowing work today. It's been a real team effort amongst the fire department, police department, facilities, and public works. We do have contractors coming back in town tonight to deal with the last band of snow coming through. We are on board with trash pickup that's been delayed till tomorrow. However, we do ask that residents do not put their trash out tonight because we'll be coming through plowing.
Mhm.
There's a fair chance that your barrels will get knocked about. So if
Got
at
it.
all
Yes, thank
possible,
you for that,
please
Dave.
wait till the morning to put them out. So thank you.
I looked on the website this morning to see if there would be a message about it being delayed, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. Someone got to the website. Whilst we're waiting for Terrence, whose job is that, David?
So our business manager, Liz Antanavica,
Yeah.
also deals with trash and recycling. So she's been
Okay.
right on top of things.
Nice.
Paul, we do have Corrine Dowd has her hand raised.
Sure, I'll be happy to hear Corinne say something.
Hi, I was just curious, by what time do we need to get our trash out tomorrow morning if we don't put it out until the morning?
Sure, ideally by 7 o'clock that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure we don't miss it. Thank you.
That sounds like a husband job to me. That's all I'm saying. In this house, it is, unfortunately. All right, I will give Terrence another minute, and then I think he's SOL.
Yeah, whenever he gets back on, I'll make sure I promote him.
Yeah, I think in the interest of government marching on, notwithstanding rain, sleet, or snow, I think in a minute, I think it's fair to start unless this board wishes to wait longer. Hearing no one, I think we can Why don't we go ahead and move on, actually, then? Dave, keep going.
Okay, thank you. So what you have on the board now is Shawshene Road culvert design. This is a culvert near the Shawshene water facility that has washed out, and so we're hiring Woodard and Curran to design a replacement for it. It is a critical culvert in that it leads right to Shawshene Road and then to the Shawshene River. So we're asking approval of this contract for $92,000.
So I have a question for you, Dave. Always happy to put something on when it's ripe and you asked to put it on, but is this just you decide to get it on today because we can, or is there some sort of emergency? Or reason to push it and not wait.
Right. This is not an emergency. It came in late, and so there was a little bit of confusion, and I apologize, but there is nothing. It would be great to get this work started,
okay. Right.
But there's nothing urgent about it.
And just to be clear, there's zero to apologize for. I just was curious as to if there was more of a story. So no questions from me. Sean.
Yeah, so it says that it backed up, causing flooding during several heavy rainfall events. So what level of heavy storm event is the new one designed for?
So the new one will be designed for the latest storm standards. Sean, you may be familiar with them. Where I believe it's the 2070 standard that we're using now for design. So basically, it's almost like what used to be called a 500-year storm is now considered a 100-year storm. So we're using those latest standards.
So is like what number is storm? Is it designed for a 100-year storm?
Yes, so it'd be designed for a 100-year storm.
Okay, thank you.
Ken.
Nothing.
Bolpa.
No.
Matt, do we have Terrence back yet?
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Same here. And
so
I apologize if it was my computer, but
no worries at all. I don't know if you heard Dave talking about this.
I did.
Culver. Okay. Any questions?
No, I have not.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move that the town approve the contract with Woodward and Curran in the amount of $92,000 as described in the Public Works memo dated January 21st, 2026, and that the select board authorize the town manager to sign on their behalf.
Second.
Okay, Paul is a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Bolpa?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Terrence?
Aye.
Okay, excellent. It passes. I think your last item for the evening, Dave?
Yes, thank you. This is just a vote from the board. It's a somewhat perfunctory. We do have within our bylaws that applicants can request a deferral of sewer connection and II fees, and this is a multifamily on 18 Loomis, which has requested it. All fees will be paid. It's simply a deferral to the first occupancy permit coming in.
Okay, are there any questions from any board member? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move the town approve deferral of sewer connection and sewer II fees for 18 Loomis Street in accordance with the memo from Public Works dated January 21st, 2026, with all fees to be paid prior to any issuance of certificates of occupancy.
Second.
Okay, second from, I think Sean got it. Paul is a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Bolpa?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
And Terrence?
Yes.
Excellent. Dave, I hope are you done for the night, or are you receiving phone calls left and right about plowing?
Nope, phone calls have quieted down, so I'm done for the evenings. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Great
And
evening.
people, don't put out your trash stuff until the morning,
Very
7
good.
a.m. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Okay. Moving ever forward, we have prudent investor rule. And are we getting Christine, or are you playing Christine tonight, Matt? You're muted, Matt.
Sorry, Christine, we have promoted her to panelist, and I believe she has one of her consultants with her as well. Christine, we have about 30 attendees. Can you tell me who else you'd like me to promote?
I just have Brian Jamrose with me.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Got it. I'll promote him now.
Thank you.
Great. And we'll sort of, the board has a few documents in their packet, the KP Law update
Sure.
for this, as well as the, explanation of the 3 buckets of money. So, but if you or he want to give a quick overview, this is on the draft warrant as a acceptance of the local option.
Yeah, I'm just requesting to put forth an article to adopt prudent investor at our next town meeting. So prudent investor allows us for greater diversification than we're currently allowed under the Mass Legal List of Investments. Currently, we have a really short list that we're allowed to invest in, and this adopting this will open up that list and give some opportunities for our funds to be invested in other ways, better ways. A lot of communities have already adopted this. I do have Brian Jamrose here from Bartholomew. He helps me manage our trust funds and our other money, and he's an expert in this, and he can speak a little bit more on this.
Sounds good, Christine. Thank you. And and I'm sorry, you said it's Brian?
Yes.
Brian, how are you?
Good. Good morning. Good afternoon. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Well, you're very eager. It's not quite morning.
No, it's been a.
You got to get your rubbish out.
Get my rubbish out. I was thinking about that. You said that earlier, so that's what I meant.
Yes. So my only question is, question's really, this looks fine. I'm sure it's fine. However, whenever there's some things I read in there, and when I read it like 3-4 days ago, I'm like, oh, well, is this a risky investment? Are we going to start like investing in risky stuff? And I'm okay with steady Eddie conservative stuff. So am I wrong that it opens up to? Are we going to be investing in gold futures and crypto, or what's the story there?
Sure. What was your name? I'm sorry, I can't.
Paul Mortensen.
Paul. Okay, I just see your last name. So
yeah,
Paul. Yeah, no, actually, it does not. First of all, there's no crypto.
I was being a wise guy with the crypto. I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, well, you can do that personally, but we're not going to do it municipal funds. How's that?
Okay. Yeah.
But no, it actually, it does not increase the risk. What increases the risk is equity exposure. So if we just kept all the trust funds right where they are and we kept it at the same risk tolerance, it would actually not increase the risk. As a matter of fact, it would diversify it, because right now you only have access to 22 companies. It's somewhat of an archaic list. It's only the big blue chip companies. And but to answer your question, Paul, that's the number one question everybody has. So don't feel bad, Paul. So no, it does not increase the risk at all. Now, when we start increasing the equity exposure, that will increase the risk. But with a well-diversified portfolio, then we're allowed to do that and feel comfortable. Right now, the funds that can move are your trust funds, cemetery perpetual care, scholarship funds, and library funds. Those are the ones in question. Now, the law does allow, if you accept it, does allow CPA and affordable housing, but we strongly recommend that you really have a good hand. That was never intended. The law never intended to be for those 2 or 3. But if you did want to do that, we would make sure you have a real good handle on your cash flow for those particular funds, and we'd have probably a low equity depending on the cash flow needs. But let's just look at the trust funds, cemetery perpetual care, scholarship funds, and library funds. Those are your long-term funds that should be invested with a long-term perspective. Right now, because they're invested under the legal list and commingled with your stabilization, which is fine, they're not really invested appropriately for the right risk profile for the type of funds they are. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Did that answer your question? I could talk all day about this.
No. I think that's fine. My next question is for Christine. Christine, who actually makes the decision? Yeah, this is the right investment mix. Is that you?
It's me with Brian's team.
With Brian's team advising.
We work together.
But the buck stops with you.
Correct.
Yes.
Mass General Law indicates that the treasurer of any city and town
is the trustee and custodian of the funds.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's it. All I have. Bopa, anything from you?
Yeah, so I think I do think it seems like it's a good idea for long-term stability. I guess I'm not sure if your last question actually kind of answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
Ask.
In terms of the towns that have done this already, what policies, I guess my question is more like in terms of our policy, like should we tweak or establish some sort of guidance or guidelines for the decisions on these investments or how it's allocated? You know what I mean? Like I hope I'm asking it correctly. And I don't know, like in terms of other towns, like what type of guidelines they have according to this investor stuff or
Yeah, so good. I know where you're going, so I can answer that. First of all, we're not necessarily a one-off advisor. We work with over 330 municipal entities, primarily in the Commonwealth. And about 100 cities and towns have gone prudent. We have turned over about 65 or converted 65 plus. I haven't really run that number in a month, but about 65, 70 that we've converted over. Now, to answer your question, I think it's BOPA, right?
BOPA, yep.
BOPA, sorry.
Yep.
My eyes aren't as good as they want.
It's okay.
So what we do is after the town, if they decide to go to prudent investor, what we do is we understand the composition of the assets. We evaluate the goals and objective for each type of fund that's going to go into that new account. We evaluate the goals in the commingled account, and then we help update the investment policy according to that. And we set targets, mins and maxes for each particular security position. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, yeah.
And then based on our experience, because primarily, we work with quite a few cities and towns and we specialize in that. And we have 2 former municipal employees on staff. Well, actually, excuse me, one just retired, so I apologize. But we have a great understanding of the municipal funds and the types of funds they are. We look at the non-expendable versus expendable inside the new account, the funds that can get exported over to the new prudent investor. And then based on how much of it is non-expendable versus the expendable, we'll make a recommendation based on a couple of different things, but that's one of the components, and make a recommendation to the treasurer. And then we will help draft the IPS to follow what he or she was looking to do. Did that answer it?
Yes, it does. And Paul, if you don't mind, can I ask another question as well?
Please, as many as you'd like.
So then I assume we put this in annual town meeting, let's say approves it. We're working with your company, right, Brian?
Yes.
And then typically when, in terms of other municipalities, how do you, how regularly do you meet with them in terms of showing the investment performance and all of that stuff, and then if things need to be tweaked or changed or whatever, how do you typically meet with Christine on a regular basis, or how does that work?
Yeah, to answer your question, a minimum of twice a year. If there's changes like this, that's in person, the twice a year minimum. But if there's anything going on in the transition, we jump on a Zoom call, on a phone, walk her through step by step the transition. And but on a maintenance standpoint, we found that most treasurers and finance directors don't want to see us more than twice a year unless something's going on, and then we'll contact them. We used to do this 4 times a year. Like, what are you doing here? It's a 10-minute meeting. Get out. So, but does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Anything else, Bopa?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, Sean.
I'm all set. I think this is a good idea.
Yeah. Dan?
I'm all in. No questions.
Okay, Terrence?
Sounds like a great idea. I just want to make sure that I have this clear. Brian, you're basically saying that if the town adopts a prudent man's standard, the town would now have available to it a broader horizon of investments.
Correct. That is correct.
And so it really wouldn't be taking on more risk. It would be giving the town the availability of a broader allocation of risk. Is that true?
So let me be clear. So if you kept the same equity exposure, so if you kept the same equity exposure and you went prudent investor, it would actually decrease the risk. It would have more diversification. You would lower concentration risk. However, because of the restrictions of the Mass General Law, and by the way, the MCTA Treasurer Collectors Association that Christine's involved with have been trying to change this law for 12 plus years. And the number one hangup was the Division of Banks. They thought if they changed this law, that they thought credit unions would be able to take on the deposits of cities and towns. And once they figured out that wasn't the case, they passed it without a problem. But let me go back. So to answer your question, if you kept the same equity exposure, it would actually keep the same amount of risk, would actually lower the risk because you're diversifying it. Now, however, we're going to make a recommendation to increase the risk because these funds have been commingled with your stabilization type funds, which are your rainy day emergency type funds. And it's not really prudent to invest those with such low equity, just trying to keep above, best money markets and CDs out there. So along with the diversification and more opportunity, we're going to make recommendations to increase the risk, but we're going to look more appropriate risk for the types of funds. Does that make sense? It's almost like taking your emergency fund and your 401k and investing it the same way. We wouldn't necessarily recommend that.
Gotcha.
So your stabilization is more like your emergency fund. And your 401k is your long-term investments or your cemetery perpetual care or your trust funds or your library funds or scholarship funds. Does that make sense?
It does. Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that grilling, does someone have a motion?
If you want, we don't need to make a motion at this time. We can wait till we're discussing it as part of the draft warrant. So we don't have a motion drafted at this time.
All right. I think we get the idea. I think everyone looks at it favorably. Christine, thank you as always. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night and
Have a great night.
Stay safe.
Sounds good.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. Yep.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
both.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, Matt.
Okay, now we have attorney Pam Brown.
Excellent.
Saw her on here. I'm just going to promote her now.
Hi all.
Hey, Pam, take it
Happy-
away. All
Happy
yours.
snow day.
Yeah.
I also have, and she will be helping with the presentation, Lynn Swede, who's LDS Consulting, that's been doing a lot of this 40Y. So maybe while I start talking, Matt could promote her as well. And David Goldbaum, I believe, is also on the line. We do have, I see Matt's got the zoning up, but the quick intro is that based on conversations with the planning board some months ago, when we were considering doing a local initiative project for 49 Elm Street, one of the board members actually said, why not do a 40Y? And 40Y is a relatively new statute that I'll let Lynn speak to. And we did want to give you a quick overview of that maybe before we jump into the zoning. But ultimately, we have been working under that premise to draft a zoning bylaw that would be the 40Y starter home zoning. Unlike the multifamily housing zoning, these are intended to be smaller units. There is a limit in size of the units. So that we really are, not just allowing higher density, but we're sort of mandating that the units are smaller and by their nature less expensive. At the size that we're proposing for 49 Elm Street, there's no affordability requirement. But again, the idea is that we're really targeting a different product that's not readily available in Bedford. Matt, if it's okay, I would love to have Lynn share her screen just to do, we have a few
sure.
slides. I don't think it'll take too long I know we only have 15 minutes, so I don't think it'll take long to run through them, but we wanted to just give the board an overview of the statute and the requirements and so forth before we hop into the bylaw itself.
Great. Lynn, are you seeing the option to share, or do I need to make you a co-host?
I am not seeing the option to share. Good evening.
Okay, great. I just promoted you to co-host from panelist, so
thank you very
now
much.
Great.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Lynn Sweet, LDS Consulting Group. Pam gave you a real quick background. I will kind of add on to that, which is that when we first came to you with the LIP, there was a concern about the size of the units on the site. So we worked on creating a plan that has smaller units and a variety of units. You'll see 1 to 3 bedrooms rather than all 3-bedroom units. And so to date, we've met several times with the planning board on the draft language. We've talked with staff, and we have actually gotten 2 rounds of comments back from the state at this point as well. So the exact language is still under consideration by everybody. What we're looking, where we're going from here is that we're hoping to get your approval so that we can actually formally submit the bylaw to the state. They have a 45-day official review period, but we have found that that is longer, and it is, again, a preliminary review. We are also hoping to put the bylaw on the town meeting warrant, and I apologize, I see that we've repeated town there. And that we also have another meeting tomorrow night with the planning board and the town planning staff to go over the changes that we've been going back and forth on the language. And if everything looks like it's moving forward with the warrant and with the planning board and with your board, then we will start to do a very large, hopefully, community outreach effort to try and educate the public in the town. And we typically work with a wonderful not-for-profit, Abundant Housing, which helps towns. They've helped a lot of towns pass their MBTA zoning, and they really want to see more housing throughout Massachusetts. And as far as the basics, kind of a basic overview, the law passed as part of the large affordable housing bill several years ago. There have been draft regulations. They are sitting on someone's desk at the state waiting for signature, but the party that we've been dealing with at the state is well aware of what is in those actual regulations that go with the law themselves. So we're really fortunate to have gotten that feedback in the last week. And starter districts are similar to a 40R, that they can be adopted by a simple majority vote of town meeting. When they overlay existing zoning, the bylaw itself is really geared towards creating smaller homes, and the maximum amount of heated living area in any home can only be 1,850 feet. You must allow a minimum or no fewer than 4 units per developable acre, and no less than half of your homes need to be 3-bedroom homes. And it's a little bit similar to 40B that you generally have to comply with all state regulations, but in drafting the bylaw, you might be able to waive some or, change the bylaw to on other regulations. They are targeting families. They are not allowing age restrictions. They do allow some design standards, but they really want them to be reasonable, clear, objective, and measurable. They want, if you've passed a bylaw, that they're assured of some success, that something will be built under the bylaw. They do allow a site plan review process. So kind of the order is adopt the bylaw to go on the town warrant, pass the town warrant, then have the bylaw approved by the state officially, and then have the a site plan approval once the bylaw is in place. So the town does have the ability to review what the plans look like. And there is, as Pam mentioned, an income restriction on developments that have 13 or more units. There are some fiscal benefits to the community. What we're proposing under the bylaw is a smaller number of units. So if you adopt the bylaw when it is adopted, there is a $10,000 fee that goes to the town's general fund. And then again, similar to 40R, for every unit that gets built, there's another $3,000 that goes to the community every time those units are created. The site that we're looking at is right in the center of town at 49 Elm Street. It's depicted here. And this is an area that currently has fairly dense zoning. And that's really what this map shows you, is that the density for the surrounding units is around 8, could be 11, 14, as you get closer to the supermarket and the town common. And this is just another chart that shows what the density is looking like. And in particular on Elm Street, the density is 10.5 units per acre. And these are just a few pictures of what's currently on the site. The existing home that's on the site is going to remain. A small portion of it will be demolished to reduce the size of that farmhouse to 1,850 square feet. In total, this site will have 9 units, including the farmhouse, so 8 new construction units. Home ownership units, a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, compact in size, trying to be as green as we possibly can. The plan we've created has 21 parking spaces. Again, that's up for discussion. It has a very large amount of open space despite the density, and it does maintain the tree buffer along the property line. So in total, we are suggesting that 4 of the units have 3 bedrooms of the new construction. 2 of the units have 2 bedrooms and 2 have 1 bedroom plus the existing home itself. And this is a site plan that we are using, for example, that shows visitor parking, a main driveway, the existing home here where a portion will come down, and then a new garage will be added with a little bit of a great room. And you can see that this is the closest setback to Elm Street for all of the buildings. And then you have each home, most of which have 1-car garages and outdoor parking as well. And again, we've tried to maintain the buffer all the way around the buildings. The height, this next chart just talks a little bit about what's being suggested from a density standpoint, where we are holding, I believe, the height to 29 inches from the ridge line, or about 2.5 stories, and trying to maintain setbacks of 15 feet all the way around the site. And I'm just about done. I know I've been talking for a while. And this is an idea of what that they might look like. Certainly, there's a lot more character that can be added to color and differentiation, and different types of finishing on the outside to give them a lot more character than what we're showing here. And this I'm sure is very hard to see on the screen itself, but the ability to have one-bedroom homes, home ownership is it's just very rare in kind of essentially a detached home. So we're excited about being able to offer smaller homes for homeowners. And that's pretty much all we've got here. There's a little bit of who the rest of the development team is. David is the developer on this site. You all know Pam very well. And Ralph is the architect. And I think you also may know Taylor Dowdy from BSC. So thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. Anything else, Pam, or should we start with questions?
Feel free, and we do have the bylaw. I don't know that you guys want to really go through it word by word. We kind of have two asks. One is, and I don't know if Tony is on tonight, but we are hoping that the planning board will sponsor this. We also submitted a petitioner's article, albeit a couple of days late. But one way or the other, we were really hoping we can get the bylaw tweaked, long before you go to print. And the other ask Lynn alluded to is we actually need Matt to formally request the state to review this. So he's been providing informal feedback to us so far, and I think would continue to do so. But ultimately, the town needs to kind of express it's interested in seeing this kind of development and so forth. But feel free to ask questions.
All right. So I actually have a question for any of my board members to pipe up with. I personally was thinking I want to hear from the planning board on this more than anything. Is there any disagreement with that statement?
Nope, I agree.
I totally agree with that.
Okay. I'm not hearing Dan or Terrence. I might just ask a few kind of generic questions, and I'm going to show my ignorance of things planning, which is, I think I've heard of 40Y once before in a fleeting reference. I'm like, oh, okay, right. And I see that a project's already connected with this, and I was curious as to whether or not, and I guess this question is, well, is it typically brought to a town because of a particular project, or is it the planning board says, gee whiz, this area would be nice, amenable to this kind of development? And I don't think there's a wrong answer. I'm just kind of curious because I would have thought it would be the latter, that, the planning board would be leading, gee, these sections should be 40Y. I guess Pam, why don't you go ahead and speak to that?
I'll start with that. And Lynn, because Lynn has been working in one other community on this too. So, but I will start. Actually, in my planning consultant years, I've seen it both ways. We've certainly had a lot of Bedford projects that kind of initiated zoning. Hartwell Farms is one of them, the Residence D District. The town center, we still call it the Blake Block, but that was the same thing. It's kind of, let's work up a plan that seems agreeable and then we'll write zoning for it.
Okay.
This one, I think, it is an overlay. We did consider doing a broader area, not just one lot, but because there is public benefit, it's not spot zoning. And we thought maybe it makes more sense, especially on the heels of multifamily housing, to just use this parcel where we've actually been talking about this type of development on this parcel for several years already. And it's just recently we switched from doing a LIP to suggesting 40Y. And as I mentioned, that actually came from the planning board saying, did you look at doing it as a 40Y? But here I would treat it sort of as the test study. If it's something the town ultimately likes, then we have a little example, and it's something that could be, replicated either in the same form or, a different 40Y bylaw, because it is an overlay.
Okay. And as of right, what can be done there now over and above what's already there?
A 2-family with an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay. So 2-family. So as compared to 8 new units plus what's a truncated version of what's there?
Exactly.
Got it. So, all right. And then finally, I'm sure there are many benefits to a 40Y, but could Theoretically, I'm just wondering out loud, and not particularly needing your answer, is you mentioned spot zoning. That's one of those words I never use it because I really don't feel comfortable that I can
Right.
use it with reservoir of, a bunch of gray hair in planning and knowing what's what. But could we rezone that area outside of 40Y to allow it? And therefore, what we would do is, I hate to see that a developer can, and Dave's a great guy. I think I know who Dave is. But without a developer being able to say, no, we don't have to follow, local, rules or some local rules, because I kind of like those local rules because I think they
Right.
protect the town. So, I mean, theoretically, I would think that's possible. Am I way off there?
You can, and we thought about doing that also.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do here is, and I think it's not without any rules. What we're trying to do
Mhm.
here is make sure that this bylaw includes the most critical regulations that the town is interested in. So it's not a free for all. 40B is actually, you're probably familiar with the 40B. That actually is a little bit more of a free for all because the ZBA has the authority to waive any zoning bylaw. You can't waive Board of Health and you can't waive, safety code.
Yeah. But theoretically, in governance, I should be okay if the ZBA does it, right? I'm more concerned about if a developer doesn't have to comply with, rules, right? Just by right versus, ZBA, I actually think does a pretty good job of, watching out for the town's interest.
Well, it's by right, meaning it doesn't need a special permit, but it still has to comply with all of the rules that we write into this zoning bylaw.
Okay. All right.
So what the state has advised us actually is we don't want cross references to other sections of your bylaw. So we're actually trying to put all of the critical points directly into this bylaw because they prefer it to be standalone.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. I'll go with Bopa next. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Sean.
Yeah, so I actually have a lot of questions, but I'll try to get on the most salient ones since, I don't want to get too much in the weeds. I'm not on the planning board anymore. One thing that jumps out is it's labeled a starter home district, but I see that there's an allowance up to 1850 square feet. And in the proposal that there were 4 houses proposed that were 1800 square feet. And could you give a sense of what the price may be for an 1800 square foot new house with 3 bedrooms?
I'd be throwing a dart, but significantly less than the 1.5 to 2.5 million that's going for the houses that are double that. And some of these are 1 and 2 bedrooms that are smaller than the 1800 square feet. About half of the four of them are 1 or 2 bedrooms that are only 12 to much less than 1800. My guess is the smaller units are, and David can chime in or text me, probably in the $600,000 or $700,000 range, and the larger ones are under $1 million.
Yeah, definitely everything is going to be under $1 million. And I think one of the benefits of 40Y is that we can go with smaller units, unlike a 40B, because we don't have that 25% affordable component. And so that is why we are able to do 1 and 2 bedrooms that are about, around 1,200, 1,300 square feet.
Okay. Another thing that I have a concern about, so if I look at the proposed 40Y bylaw, it talks a lot about by right. And then there's a series of developmental guidelines and it talks about a plan view. Am I correct that that's a site plan review? And is that per the planning board? Okay.
It is. The reason we're calling it plan approval, and this came from the state actually, we were kind of tying back to the site plan approval regulations of the town, but because the state is looking to not cross-reference, we don't want to regurgitate the whole site plan review section here. I pulled out a few bullet points from the site plan review regs as well as sort of the filing requirements. But if we call it capital letters site plan review, then the state was treating that like a cross-reference. So we're just calling it plan approval, so the requirements are limited to this bylaw. But what I've done is gone back to the regs, the other regs, to try to bring them into this bylaw.
Okay, so one thing that occurs to me, and I definitely am in favor of housing affordability and diversity in housing. Normally, when we would approve a development like this, there would be, neighbors would chime in and would have to have certain screening requirements. So it looks a certain way from the street, and then be looking at how driveways are pointed because of, they don't want to conflict with other houses around, all valid points. And what I'm wondering about is because, having been on the planning board, a site plan review is typically a very weak statutory instrument. It's not the same thing as a special permit, you know that, Pam. If this was to go forward, how would those types of issues be enforced by the planning board with some teeth to them?
So as drafted, and Lynn can chime in too, but as drafted, at least so far, we can do more. We've incorporated things like requiring front porches, some design kinds of things to try to keep them. We've also actually in this bylaw, based on the last planning board meeting, reduced the height to 2 stories and 30 feet. So it's not 2.5 stories and 35 feet. So we're kind of continuing on the smaller theme. We're really trying to draft into here what we're looking for. And if you take the flip side, you've got a builder comes along and buys a lot that can build a 2-family home of unlimited size and an accessory dwelling unit. There's no review of that. So, I mean, here there's at least review. We're putting into the bylaw some of these design hopefully the most important design criteria, as well as sort of, I guess, think of it as evaluation criteria for the site plan.
Yeah, we do have in the bylaw some sustainability requirements, some universal design requirements, some planting requirements. So as Pam mentioned, we and some development review requirements, and it's kind of like a balancing act to try and give the town as much oversight as possible, but not too much that a developer can't actually meet that standard. So it's that, always a hard thing to do. And as far as the neighbors go, many of them actually signed the petition to put this on the warrant as well. So there have been some conversations to date.
Okay. Thanks for that. And speaking of the petition, so I know we were presented in the packet with what looked like a petitioner's article. Am I correct in understanding that the article was presented after the deadline, and that's why you're asking the select board to sponsor this?
We're actually hoping the planning board will sponsor it and expecting they will, but they just weren't quite ready. They're having another meeting on this tomorrow night. We were with them last week and we've been making lots of progress. It's just, the nature of getting some preliminary comments from the state and making tweaks and so forth. Okay. What the select board needs to do is, we're asking that you would put it on the warrant one way or the other. But then also the select board, because it's what the 40Y rules say, is that the chief operating officer will make the inquiry or the request to the state to both give a review and to support the concept of having this kind of project or this kind of zoning here.
Okay, yeah, because I think I maybe misunderstood what was on the slides where it said select. So, I mean, I can't speak for my fellow board members, but certainly if the planning board agrees to sponsor this, I'd be in favor of putting it on the warrant, because normally that's where zoning originates from in the planning board. But they would sponsor it and speak to it and the pros and cons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. I think I'm good for now.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Dan.
Yeah, Sean's questions were perfect. I'm certainly 40Y curious. I remain always concerned when we talk about hypothetical affordability without actually tying a requirement. So I don't want to get in another bucket with cottages that cost 800 grand here. And that's this problem that we're solving. That actually doesn't solve a problem. I think our process with Northside was very deliberate, and we got an excellent percentage of affordability that were actually affordable. So this is great. The only thing I care about is what affordability means. Because if it's not, then I'm not going to support it at the end of the day. But let the planning board weigh in and let the people hear about it at town meeting. Certainly in favor of the process.
Thank you, Dan. And Terrence.
Only thing I can do is echo the comments of my two colleagues, Sean and Dan. I generally am in favor of trying to build more affordable housing, but I think Dan's comment is valid. $800,000, $900,000 house may not meet that, and I thought Sean asked a lot of excellent questions, and it's certainly something that the planning board should get involved in.
Excellent.
Paul,
Yeah.
I
I'm sorry.
actually-
Yes, but did I skip you, Bopa? I'm
No,
sorry.
you did not
Oh.
skip me. I actually didn't have a question then.
Yep.
And I think this may have been in the materials, but I want to confirm. What is the acreage of the property, or how big is the property?
This site is just a tad under an acre.
Yeah.
So the density, and that's actually one of the slides that I had prepared with the overview with some of the density numbers on it, was really intended to show you how large this parcel is compared to the abutting parcels and the others in the neighborhood, which range between like under 4,000 square feet to like 12,000 square feet. But in terms of like this parcel is almost as big as the 3 units on the School Street side and the 3 units on the Roberts Drive side that abut the property. So you take those 6 units or those 6 lots combined, and it's yeah. So you can see if you combine, it's almost the same size, probably a little bit smaller, but pretty close.
I'm sorry. Did member have something else? Terrence, were you? Okay. Didn't want to cut anyone off. 2 comments. One is the first and foremost is I think we'll let the planning board come back, and I think you kind of can read through the tea leaves if the planning board wants to put it on. I would guess we would. Just one other comment I have would be that we have a lot more, we have a lot of density that's in the pipeline, and I'm not against this particular one, but I must say we've bit a lot off and haven't digested it yet. So that's a little bit of a lurking concern in the back of my mind.
Fully understood.
Yeah.
Just a closing
and none
comment.
of it's affordable.
Yeah, I guess 2 closing points. The town center history, in fact, in Bedford's history, as given by the lot sizes you see, but it's traditionally the area where planners would want higher density. It's walkable. I mean, this location is a great location to get to the senior center, to get to the schools, to get to the ball fields, to get to shopping, and so on and so forth. The other is that this, well, we're using the term affordable. The goal here was really for sort of the middle income. Even the affordable requirements, if you are a larger development over 13 units, is more targeted at the 110% of median income rather than the 50 to 80% of median income. But it's something that in my opinion, we're losing in town with a lot of tear downs of, ranches and capes and so forth, and being replaced by, large $2+ million homes. So,
okay. All right. Thank you very much, Pam.
Really appreciate your time.
Lynn, David, thank you.
I think
Yeah,
Tony,
Matt.
Tony has
Yeah, we do have Tony Fields has his hand up.
But of course, Tony.
Good evening. I just wanted to follow up and confirm that this is on the planning board agenda tomorrow night. It will be the dominant discussion of the evening. As noted, this property has been the subject in the past of redevelopment ideas and options, and a friendly 40B or a LIP had been discussed on multiple occasions. But I think the provision in the 40Y statute that limits dwelling unit sizes to 1,850 square feet is of interest because it helps target some of the missing middle housing sizes. We do, or at least I do, have continuing concerns, however, that the state controls the zoning for this. And so we do need to work out some of the technical points that are in this proposed bylaw. I can't say whether the planning board is or is not going to reach agreement to get this on the warrant, but we are working on it. And so I guess stay tuned. The planning board has said if that didn't work, that they would also be open to creating some other kind of overlay district that works for Bedford that might be similar to 40Y if we can't figure out how to do this under 40Y. So as noted, if you go back into the 40s, the zoning in the town center allowed for 7,500 square foot lots. That's that wouldn't get you to the proposed density of this, but it's not, as you'll see, the current planning board isn't really opposed to density. It's a matter of how do we get there. So, so I just wanted to just give you that confirmation that we're still reviewing this, and we'll probably get back to you at your next meeting on the 9th.
All right, very helpful, Tony. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your comments.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, Lynn, Tony.
Thanks.
Pam, thank you. All right, Matt, I think we're moving to a public hearing. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. If someone would like to make a motion to open.
So moved.
I second that.
Okay, so Sean?
Aye.
Paul's and I, Bolpa?
Aye.
Terrence?
Aye.
And Mr. Brosgall? Dan?
And I was muted. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Matt, can you take it away?
Sure. I will. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Right. Share screen. Good. Okay. Let me pull up the first memo here first. Okay, so really only a few proposed changes here. I will note we have Lizzie Gouveia, our new HR director, on the line as well for our first salary bylaw public hearing. So welcome, Lizzie.
Welcome, Lizzie. Thanks for joining.
Okay, great. So a few changes this year. Normally the entire scale goes up by the same amount that the cost of living increase for the average employee goes up every year, but proposing something slightly different this year because the hourly rates went up when some of the hours changed. If we hop over to the scale, you'll be able to see what this means in person a little bit easier, but for the full-time employees, which were 40 and now we're counting at 37.5 hours due to shortening their lunch breaks as part of the 4-day work week schedule. I kept the total dollar amount for the ranges the same this year because the rate per hour had already increased with that change. So again, for the 37.5 hour employees, which is the majority of the employees are full-time employees, the range is not going to change this year. So the entry rate and the max rate. However, employees that are already hired, already working for the town, we will be providing a 2.5% cost of living adjustment if our budget is approved as proposed. So other than keeping the range the same, for the full timers, it does affect the 35-hour week range, but I can get back into that. There's really only a few changes to the actual positions we're proposing right now. One is a request from the library in grade 3, adding a maintenance supervisor position. This position will oversee the grade 2 custodians. The maintenance and custodial duties are currently being separated from the grade 6 library building and system superintendent position. So this will give them an option to fill a position at a slightly lower grade if they choose to. Grade 4, I'm proposing to add the community planning administrator. We have a separate attachment for that I'll get into. Grade 5, adding a community planning and sustainability manager. That's the same grade as the energy and sustainability manager currently, which we are proposing to keep, so it's not on the list. Like to add social worker unlicensed to grade 5. Currently, social workers are in grade 6, so we would be adding the word licensed after that. When that position of social worker was graded 2 years ago with the Collins Center, it was based on the understanding that we were looking for and hiring licensed social workers, but we'd like to have some flexibility. If we do hire a licensed social worker, it wouldn't be fair to the licensed social workers to have the unlicensed ones at the same grade as them. So we're proposing just add an additional option for unlicensed social workers. So that's really the highlight of the positions here. So to explain in more detail, if you were to look at the warrant from last year in grade 2, the annual rates have not changed for the minimum and max for the full-time 37.5-hour employees. We do have a handful of part-time employees in the first few grades, and so the ranges have increased there due to the hourly rates. But again, we don't anticipate, it's not going to affect any existing employees. It would change slightly the ranges for some new employees coming in. But overall, we were trying to keep the ranges as close to the same as last year as possible. We've highlighted the titles in here for the new positions that we've added. And if you'd like, I can jump into a PowerPoint to talk about 2 of those community planning positions in a little bit more detail as well. And then we can...
Sure.
Great. We do still, as I note, have Tony Fields on the line and Lizzie, if you have questions for me or for them. Because these are the 2 most, most significant changes or additions. Just by way of background, I'll go very quickly through this. Last year, the Housing and Economic Development Director position was moved from the Town Manager's Office into the Planning Department to help create some better synergy with that position and get them closer to the action with planning and code. So we're proposing 2 new positions, Community Planning and Sustainability Manager and Community Planning Administrator. Currently, we have 1 vacancy in an administrative position in the office that we wouldn't be filling, and we have an upcoming retirement in March for an assistant town planner position that we wouldn't be filling as well. And these would be 2 basically new job descriptions, new positions entirely. This will align with our staffing structure and really the current and future responsibilities of the department. And as I said, it would be cost neutral due to those upcoming vacancies. Prior to the change with moving economic development into the planning department and this change, the planning department had a pretty narrow focus on zoning, permitting, and their regulatory review. This will really help to broaden their role and put on more of a community planning and engagement focus. And again, really memorialize that housing and economic development is in there, as well as sustainability, energy, and climate action programs. If you look around Massachusetts, a lot of planning departments over the last 10 or 15 years have turned into land use departments, community planning. There's a whole bunch of new titles that have been used. Not looking to change the name of the department at this time, but part of the reason for those name change is to sort of recognize the new normal when it comes to municipal planning. Again, this is a little repetitive, but their work now is going to expand across a few different specialties. The existing job titles don't reflect that. The new ones will, and it's going to align with our organizational goals for the department. So 2 specific positions here, the Community Planning and Sustainability Manager. I do have draft job descriptions in your packet, but at a high level, this is really an evolution from a traditional planning role. It would lead the residential and commercial sustainability, climate, and energy initiatives, very specifically taking those duties directly as they were written from the energy and sustainability manager job description, again, which will still exist, but copying them into this position. So if this position is filled, at least for the residential and commercial, they would be spearheading that. And then supports the community planning, housing, and economic development goals in some small ways as well, assisting both of the directors in the office. They would also help with that coordination across departments with some of the external partners. So what changed? Again, somewhat of a reduced emphasis on day-to-day zoning mechanics, an increased focus on community-wide sustainability goals. If you were to read in most communities, the town planner or planning director job description and the assistant town planner job description, the assistant town planner job description is usually just a slightly watered down version of exactly what's written in the planning director's job description, but it says things more like assists with, planning activities and plan reviews versus, completes plan reviews when they come in. So this will be a much more encompassing job description. Similar for the community planning administrator job description, this will really just recognize support for broader departmental initiatives rather than just planning board packet materials, recognizing that there is housing and economic development and sustainability within the office now. So it will really support, have the ability to support all of those office initiatives. It's being upgraded one level. The new title we think will be a lot more attractive to somebody who is interested in planning, maybe doesn't have a professional planning background, but could, take on some small projects or be a bit more engaging in the process. Let's see. This is just a note here, how some of these job descriptions align with some of our neighboring communities and how, the sustainability and resilience piece is sometimes baked into the planning department or planning and development related roles, whether it's planning, land use, DPW. It's done a lot of different ways. Again, I'm not going to highlight this again, just what changed on the administrator role. This highlights again the organizational benefits, really just supporting integration across planning, housing, and sustainability. And here's just a quick summary. I'm going to take a break from the PowerPoint there, and I think I'll just open it up to questions from the board at this point. And as I know, it is a public hearing as well.
Yep, I think I'll go to the board first and then the public. I have no questions. Sean.
Yeah, so first of all, I like this. I like repurposing the position with the energy and sustainability focus, and filling a gap on the residential and commercial sustainability side that existed. One question I have is, now that we effectively have a municipal energy and sustainability manager, and this position would be focused on residential and commercial, how would the ownership work? How would they work together, and who would be responsible for the overall energy and sustainability, things like the net zero plan, the decarbonization roadmap?
Sure. One of the options we talked about on a real practical level is the planning department, spearheaded by the economic development director, not the planning department, but monthly staff meetings to coordinate amongst departments. So currently they hold a permitting meeting, and I've spoken to him about the idea of having a sustainability focus every other meeting, specifically for the sustainability folks to discuss their initiatives from residential, commercial, and municipal at that group, because that group brings together DPW, code enforcement, planning, police and fire as well. They're heavily involved in a lot of plan reviews and the planning projects of the town. Just to make sure that they're speaking regularly. I'm sure we're going to come up with some other practical ways to make sure that they're, discussing the work that they're working on. We'll also likely assign for certain specific projects, one of the two individuals Even if there's plans that need to be updated that require input from both or multiple departments, we'll probably pick one person to spearhead it. That's how we do things currently. With the Department of Public Works, for example, the NIPD's permit is one that is pretty notorious at requiring input from multiple departments to update our NIPD's permit every year. Across conservation and then several departments within the Department of Public Works. And so there's one person who spearheads it, but most of the information might come from several different departments. So we're pretty familiar with, completing that type of work. At the end of the day, if we have a plan as a municipality, I consider it my responsibility to make sure it gets done, even if that means I'm, assigning it practically to certain other employees. I'm definitely, the buck stops with me.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, Bopa, anything from you?
Yeah, so I like this as well. And I think my question is similar to Sean, and I think I know the answer, but I would just put it out there anyways as well. In terms of grants, so it's I assume like if it deals with municipal, the other manager would do it, and then if it is that how it goes, and then if it's deals with the other aspect, it should be the other person.
Yes, I would say by and large, a lot of the grants we get currently are municipal. There are cases where our MassWorks grants, for example, are more of a public-private partnership where you need to have a commercial entity supporting the grant, and it needs to have a public benefit, though, like for public infrastructure or something like that. In that case, for MassWorks, it would be the and historically has been the Housing and Economic Development Director working with the commercial business owner to write the narrative for the grant, things like that. And then the DPW handles the technical side of the grant, getting the drawings for the sewer line and the road improvements and things like that. So it's like a partnership between a few different people in the office. So usually when a grant would come up, it'll be pretty obvious to us who the lead should be. And that's something we'll make sure. I'm not sure grant writing is in the new job description yet, but it's something that some other folks had mentioned to me that they would want to see in there, and I think that's definitely a good idea.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Terrence.
I was concerned about the sustainability piece, and Sean posed an excellent question, and Matt answered it thoroughly, so I have no further questions.
Okay, and Dan?
Love going last. Great questions, Matt. Love the ideas. Keep up the good work. No questions.
Okay, with that, if you're now time for public input, anyone wishing to speak, please go ahead and raise your hand.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm trying to get the participants. Okay, I do see Patricia Fabian. Hey, Patricia, you should be allowed to talk now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Patricia Fabian, 33 Anthony Road, Chair of the Energy Sustainability Committee. So first, just thank you. I think this is a great plan, echoing what Sean and Bopa and others said. Great kind of chatting and conversing and brainstorming to make this work kind of for different parties. I did want to emphasize the central coordination, which is something that I also brought up when we were talking, and was going to suggest that we have someone from the ESC be at the planning meetings when sustainability is a topic, as sort of a person that can help sort of hinge things together. And also, as I had mentioned, the Energy and Sustainability Committee has a lot of expertise that could benefit the town, so it would also be kind of a resource for that. And the last thing I'll say is grant writing. I think I had also mentioned that has to be a key thing for any sustainability position moving forward. But thank you. I think it's a great plan.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else, Matt?
Sorry, just taking some notes.
And
definitely support those ideas. I don't. Yes, I see Sue Swanson. Sue, you should be up next.
All yours, Sue.
You are still muted, Sue.
Sorry about that.
Quite all right.
I just wanted to thank you for this very creative proposal. I know that there's been a lot of discussion, and I think this is very exciting. And I agree with Patricia. I think that the ESC's contributions would expand it and make it even better. Thank you again to all of you, especially to you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sue.
We're all excited about the plan.
I guess you'll let her speak again, Matt. Anyone else ready to speak, Matt?
I don't see any hands raised at the moment.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the hearing now? Is that right, Matt?
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Paul is a yes. Sean?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Bopa?
Yes.
And last but not least, Terry?
Yes.
Okay, the motion, it's closed. Do you need something from us now, Matt?
Well, traditionally the board will vote on the this bylaw as part of the warrant, so not after the close of the hearing. And just a quick reminder or note that the job descriptions, well, you had drafts in your packet, you don't need to vote on those tonight or whatnot. If they change, I'll probably circulate those back around. I'm looking for feedback from the planning board and ESC and Mothers Out Front and others. I don't think the board has traditionally voted to approve all new job descriptions. I think maybe on new positions like the ESC in the past. So I'm open to, if you want to have a vote on the final before any of them go out, we can talk about that. We haven't had that many new positions since I started, so I'm not sure exactly what the tradition is here.
If you're telling me it's okay, we'll just take care of that when we approve the warrant. That's fine with me. Unless you're telling me otherwise, I'm being a little bit dense here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Two different things. The salary bylaw, yes, we're definitely going to take it with the warrant. The actual job descriptions themselves aren't quite ready to go yet. I'm hoping in the next few weeks they will. I'm happy to bring them back to the board for a final review and approval. I just don't know really what the tradition here is, or the expectation, I should say, from the board.
I don't think you need to bring it back to us. I think I don't know. I think it looks good. I like it. And then I would say my suggestion is put something about the grant writing in there. But otherwise, I really don't think it needs to come back to us.
Okay, so I tell you what, unless board members feel free to speak up otherwise, but I think I'll just ask Matt to go forward and complete the drafts. Maybe suggest take Bopa's recommendation. If not, maybe come back to us. But otherwise, I think we're good to go, Matt.
Okay. If there are other recommendations,
board member think otherwise.
I mean, I'd be interested to see if you change. It sounds like you will change the draft just to see it, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why don't we see it one more time, Matt?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's see it one more time. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And excellent presentation, Matt, as always.
Oh, thank you.
And so now we're going to move to the operating budget, I believe.
Yes. Sorry, I got kicked out.
Oops.
Oh, here we go. 126. Great. Not a lot of changes from last week. I will note I have a binder draft in here, which has a lot of additional line item detail. It's about 100 pages. Certainly not going to go over that tonight. I will just pull up the updated FinCom scorecard. It's called the FinCom scorecard, but it's your scorecard too. You'll see the only change from last week is the addition of $30,000 additional into the town manager's budget. So again, in addition to the two new planning department positions, I've increased the select board energy and sustainability consulting line item up to $60,000. And we have retained the energy and sustainability manager position in the bylaws. So we'll have flexibility to spend some of that consulting money, at any time, or if at any point in the future that money needs to get transferred back into salary. It is being reserved and captured in your budget this year. That was the main, again, to select board member Brosgall. That was the real takeaway at last week's meeting. They wanted us to preserve as much of the current energy and sustainability manager's salary as possible within the budget. I had recommended keeping it in a consultant line item. So while that position isn't directly filled, we could hire consultants if we need to update plans or to support the other staff doing sustainability work, really just so we have access to the money during the year. And again, reiterating, it's a very lean budget. I did get one sort of, question from someone not on the select board, but after the fact, about us coming in under the 2.5 guideline and asking if that was prudent. So the one takeaway I really want to hit home here is, in real dollars, we are under the 2.5 guideline, but $150,000 of that is from free cash. And so I really don't want to take credit for that as far as coming under guideline, because if it was not for that reduction in free cash, we would be at the 2.5%. We'd be at about 2.6% since I put that money back in for energy and sustainability. But as far as the amount that we would be increasing the tax levy, it really is close to that 2.5% number.
Or you could just hit the compliment and say, yes, I did a great job, which I would say to you. So nice job, Matt. If only everyone else could follow our example and your example.
Okay.
Trying to be good.
There anything else, Matt? And then I'll open it up to laudits and questions.
Just in about 1 or 2 more weeks, we will have updated debt numbers and the VOC numbers, our 2 last biggest non-discretionary items. So I would say by your next meeting, I'll be, if there are no further changes to this tonight, this will be presented to the finance committee at their next meeting. And then your scorecard at your next select board meeting will have a budget that's wrapped up pretty tight. I imagine we're going to have if there's a recommendation from the finance committee and the school committee, as far as whether their number can come down any further, I'll then be able to bake that in. And we'll have 2 of our last biggest unknowns right now in the non-discretionary. So the budget by and large is going to be, I'd say 95% done by your next meeting.
Okay. And FinCom is what, a week from Thursday?
Yes, I believe that's.
Yeah, I don't need to know now. I just, okay. And I'll especially join you on that one. Okay. Any questions from the, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Matt?
Sorry, I was going to say school committee will be this Thursday, and then we're the following Thursday.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, the only question I would have, Matt, is, because we had this, basically the presentation last week, so I had questions then, but do any of the outstanding things, do you think that would significantly change the bottom line?
So VOCTEC, I expect will go up slightly. And, I have been talking to Cliff, and really at this point, we don't believe, how do I say this, regarding the, Hanscom Shawsheen issue that we've talked about. We think in the next month or so, we're going to have a little bit more direction from the state on whether we're going to need to include that or not. And so if we don't have the direction we're looking for, I do still plan on coming and, giving an explanation to this board about, what our options are. So we're still tracking that very closely. We haven't, forgot about that. Even if we build in the full amount here, it's probably going to have maybe $100,000, difference on our bottom line. So I don't expect anything.
The Shawsheen alone. Sorry, Matt, to interrupt you. Yeah. The Shawsheen point, the one we talked about, that we're paying for the Lincoln students to go to Shawsheen.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more than 100? Because I thought it was like 250 or so.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm saying I'm already carrying the full amount. So what I meant to say was, into the, not really into the red. If we carried our same amount and then just got a few percent increase, which I'm expecting, I just don't know the exact amount it would be going up. If we're able to get a reduction for the Lincoln students, it will go way back down by probably $250,000, like you said.
Can I ask you a question about that? Yeah. When you do, you said about a month out from now.
Yeah.
Will you be able to, well, for sure, if it's like, oh no, really, blah, 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 it's your responsibility, Bedford. I'd just like to know, just confirm for sure that these are Lincoln students, that they're not Bedford students. And I think that's kind of obvious, but just confirm that. And then is there a piece of paper, that someone signed on Bedford that says, yeah, we're going to start paying for Lincoln students? Because otherwise it does seemed to me that it could devolve to a game of who's on first, right? And then we're left holding the bag, which, if we're legally obliged, we're legally obliged. But I'm just wary of the, and and you're going to make it up on this, and that's why you get this, extra from the state. And I'm like, I can't keep it straight. Is there a piece of paper that explains how we are obliged?
Yeah, very unlikely, and we will definitely explain that. Yeah,
Well,
unlikely.
it should be explained to you, really, right? Because someone's presenting a bill for that amount, they should explain it to you, such that you can. You get my point, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to
Yep.
beat it to death.
No problem. And we're not trying to not talk about it. It's just if there's a likelihood that it may not even become an issue, I don't want to have to do a big charade with you guys if we're able to resolve it in the next few weeks.
Okay. All right. Okay. That sounds good. Any other budget questions? I think, Sean, you had your question, right? Anything else from you?
No, almost said.
No, Bopa?
Nope.
Dan?
No.
Terrence? Super. Excellent, Matt. Thank you. We'll continue forward.
Great. Great. Next is
Matt, I'll have you talk, and then when it comes to the town manager powers, throw it to me whenever you want, and I'll give you my little rendition of the last meeting we had with Charter and Bylaw.
great. Oh, sorry. Here's a little preview of our annual town meeting postcard that is going out. So you'll notice in the table of contents that a lot of the numbering has changed just to tighten things up a little bit, just moving things around. Most of the financial articles are bunched together now, and then most of the charter and bylaw and other general bylaw items are bunched together. So that's really the main move here. I'll go through these again just to make sure everyone that we do need to come in has come in. Let me just start at the beginning as we go through this. No changes on 1 through 4. We will have an upcoming presentation from Amy and the CPC chair on number 5. We will also have an updated presentation on the CapEx chair and Amy on number 6 as well. And we will have Peg come in at a future meeting. So those are placeholders now, but they will be coming in before you have to make your recommendation on the warrant. I expect the special ed reserve fund request to be discussed with Finance Committee this upcoming Thursday. In their budget, they are requesting about $350,000 be added in under Article 8 and approximately $450,000 in authorization to expend from it under Article 9. And again, as a reminder, the appropriation from the special ed reserve fund would really be an allowance that then during the course of the year, if needed, the school committee would have to ask for it and the select board would have to approve it. So just a reminder for anyone's watching and a reminder for the board, that's sort of the mechanism there. The money going in would absolutely go in, but money coming out would be subject to board approval. And I do think there's a question on that. Dan?
Are they spending money this fiscal year out of the stabilization fund?
They haven't.
Last year they did not, and this year they said maybe they would. I'm very curious.
Yeah. So I spoke to Julie and Cliff last week. They have an authorization this year. They were planning on it, and I think they still are. They're just not sure the exact
You say
amount.
were or weren't in that? I'm sorry, were or were not?
They were planning on spending
Okay.
it from it this year, and I believe they still are. I think they're hoping not to spend the full amount that they had been authorized this year because they've had some vacancies in teachers and other things. So they're going to try to tap it last.
Listen, I'm really hoping they spend some. I don't even spend all of it, but we funded for 2 straight years. I firmly believe this year they should spend some, not all. So I'm glad to hear they're thinking about it.
Yeah, I think they're a pretty sizable chunk. They're
Great.
probably going to have to this year.
Sorry for jumping in, Paul. Yeah.
Oh, no problem
Yeah.
at all.
Yep.
Okay, Matt, keep going.
Great. I'm sorry, I just lost my spot here. It's a small screen. Special reserve fund. The salary admin plan bylaw, I will drop that in, and maybe we can discuss it again once it's formatted in the warrant for the next meeting. The operating budgets will get loaded in towards the end once Finance Committee and has had their makes their final recommendations. We'll bring all of those back to the board, but no additional action needed on that at this time. There is a citizen petition on the select board budget. I think in some past years we had put those towards the end. I didn't know what the thoughts were about the board about, since it's related to the budget, if it makes more sense to just put it right after the budget article. That's why I've placed it in this current draft. So this was the citizen petition to determine, and this is the exact text, to determine whether the town will vote to retain the position of Energy and Sustainability Manager at the grade 5 in the salary admin plan, effective July 1st, 2026, and to fund the Energy and Sustainability Manager position in the operating budget. I do think if it is possible that may get withdrawn on the floor if folks are happy with our, $60,000 that we've set aside. And again, some of the money is transferred to the facilities department. So essentially the full amount is stored in the budget somewhere and the position is in the bylaws. So whether this passes, or gets withdrawn, or even if it were to fail, we've met the intent of what this was asking us to do by and large. So I don't have any concerns with the citizen petition. It's really just the placement. Thought it's a little cleaner rather than waiting till the very end of the night and then having to go back and talk about the budget again. Might be kind of confusing because I think it'll be a quick one.
Matt, probably a dumb question, but the citizens petition signed by many, many people, but presumably there's one or two people who are the sponsors who are empowered to withdraw it.
Yeah, and I think it's moderator's discretion. In my past community, they would either have a sponsor written on it or the moderator would assume that the first signatory was the sponsor. And I've seen them give discretion to that person to withdraw their citizen petition. So moderator's discretion is how it's been handled in my past experience, but I haven't double checked Robert's rules.
Okay.
I will check on that now that you mentioned it though. The ambulance budget, that was in our draft budget. So I'll be putting that into the warrant now. Supplemental accrued leave fund. I think by your next meeting, I'll update the amount of what we have remaining in the fund. And I can also give you what we spent in the last year. That's a question we usually get. That way you'll be able to see if we think it's appropriate to still put the $50,000 in. I do think we will want to do that. But I'll give you some data for your next meeting on Article 14. OPEB, this will be 5% of certified free cash. We do have this certified number now. We just haven't calculated the 5% number to build it in here, but I can have that updated pretty easily for your next meeting. Article 16, we haven't talked about this yet. We received a letter a few weeks ago from the Shawshene Tech superintendent. You've probably heard in the newspaper that they have been accepted into the feasibility study phase. We're a very small sender. The whole report is about 1.5 million, but they've allotted an assessment to us of $61,427. There's a lot of words here to evaluate existing facilities and long-term infrastructure requirements, but essentially it means should we, build or do a major renovation at Shawshene Tech. That's what this feasibility study will fund. Maybe for PR purposes, we could have him come in to maybe give an update on that process and where they are. If you'd like to have him come in, I certainly can. Sort of a small request.
Matt, I have a question for you. I don't know how many towns are on the hook for Shawshene, or put another way, how many towns share the financial responsibility. But let's say it's the high school comes back at it's going to be Lexington level of high school, 660 million or something, some huge number, right? Are we automatically on the hook for some certain percentage of that?
So, I would say essentially yes. This number here, I think, is based on our actual student count. I've heard in the past several times that for debt, service, there's a 10% minimum. So even if your student population falls below that, we would probably have at least a minimum of a 10%. I can double check that with Tony McIntosh at the tech
So, I mean,
school.
this potentially, like, let's say we're looking at the, it could be a big number. People should pay attention to this, in other words.
Yes, tech schools are, very, very expensive to build. They need a lot of large spaces and a lot of equipment.
Yep.
That's not a judgment call at all. It's
No,
just
nor
the
my
fact they're
question
more
wasn't meant to be
expensive.
judgy, but just so we know what's what.
Yeah. I'm sure he'd be happy to come in and talk about this if we'd like.
Yep.
Article 17, the HEROES Act. The Board of Assessors met earlier today, and Rick Ladd, our assessor, texted me that they were in support of this article, this acceptance of Mass General Law, which we discussed briefly at the last meeting. So I think we're good there. We just discussed tonight, we had a presentation on the prudent investor rule. So I believe we are all set there. That's the language. Article 19, this, since your last meeting, this draft is updated with 2 edits, and we don't have a presenter here this evening, but I did just want to draw attention to it because the board can decide whether you would like them to come in, whether you'd like to keep this on, what you'd like to do with it. They basically added 2 edits that they would be capping the increase at $500,000 in total assessed value based on the renovation. And they added 1 additional line. Probably not going to be able to pull it up from the bold. I'll just tell you what the other line is right now because I have the memo in here. There's 2 lines added. Up to $500,000, and they added the line that the tax benefit is restricted to the value of the improvements resulting from the renovation of the historic property as described in the application process. So I haven't scheduled the HPC to come back in. We did have them in the last 1 or 2 times we had talked about this. These were the tweaks they came up with over the last few months. So, well, I guess
so.
Discussion. Yeah.
I'll say this. I think the rest of the board is probably picked up on this. Even with, I think they went a decent way with the limit. I'm still against it. That limit is, I think if I calculated it right, for the first year would be a benefit to like a little over $6,000 or $20,000 over the term of it. And to me, that's basically property tax forgiveness for someone who's, I think, going to do the project anyway. And, I agree with the board's position about, let's keep people in their homes or affordable housing. But I think I go back to the example of my mother. There was 0 chance my mother was putting $500,000 into her house because it would have been sold to a developer. It just would have. And I think you're going to have a, very expensive home. So I think it's a very well-intended effort by the Historic Preservation Commission, I think is their name, but I'm a no. But there are 4 others, so I don't want to belabor it. I don't think this is tax dollars well spent. So I leave it to you folks if you want someone in or not. Anybody?
I think whenever you put a number in any type of rule, regulation, or bylaw, you run into a situation where years later, if it's approved, you're going to have to change the number. I remember when a $200,000 house was a big house. So I'm not so concerned about the number in and of itself. I'm more concerned with whether or not you want to put a number in there. You want to put a cap, because you're going to have to change it at some point.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Hearing no one, we'll just keep moving on then, Matt.
Okay, sure. Let me just jump back.
And thank you, Terry.
Sorry, it's a little slow with both screens here. Apologies. Okay. Yeah, MGL. Okay, next is the charter and bylaw. And do you want me to jump through the format first, Paul? And then if you want to talk about the specifics? Or do you want to, you can probably handle
Why don't I give it a try and then you can correct me when I go wrong? Is that fair?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, which is probably the exact opposite of what I mentioned earlier, but that was like 2 hours ago we discussed it.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, but go.
So the easy thing is I asked the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee, we met last Wednesday for the second time in recent history, if we could switch out the select board voting member for Transportation Advisory Committee from select board member to a member at large. The idea being the select board member really should go in order to make sure they meet quorum. And I personally would prefer not to have to go just to make quorum. So they acquiesce to that. So I would bring that to your attention.
Paul, can I just interrupt real quick?
Yes.
I reformatted the article numbers and placement and splitting out the articles as we had talked about, but I don't think I actually added that edit in this draft. So if the other board members didn't see it, I will make note that I still need to add that into the actual draft.
Yep. Okay. Then second, I think relatively easy thing is we talked about how to break out the votes for charter and bylaw provisions that relate to the proposal to change the date of annual town meeting. I might need some help at what we decided on the date of changing the townwide election. But basically, one article that says let's have a change on the annual town meeting, and within that article, the other charter recommendations that all would should pass as well, should the town meeting date change. And I think it would be an up or down. I don't think that the moderator would even have holds on that because it would be nonsensical to hold any particular one of those. Did I get that right, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. Then same thing with the bylaws, an amendment, a article that would say change bylaw for the town meeting date and all the bylaw changes that would follow from it, up or down. Then we moved next to substantive charter amendments that don't relate to changing town meeting.
Specifically the election, same thing copied.
Specifically the townwide election, right? And then Matt, help me out here. I need this one.
Yep. So charter and bylaws, both for the election. And then you're right, charter substantive, which really just is basically left as the town manager authority at this point. Pretty much everything else was moved into charter clarifying and formatting.
And then bylaw, I think, did we have bylaw clarifying and formatting?
Yep. Okay. And then some bylaw substantive, and then bylaw clarifying and formatting. Yep.
Okay. So now we'll move to the one that's generated some interest. And we discussed a number of options. One would be, do nothing. The other one was we would propose a change that would make clear that the school committee hires, fires, and supervises the school superintendent. And the second option would be that we change not only that for the school committee, but we would have the library trustees hire, fire, and supervise the library director. There was lots of discussion around this, and the vote 4-1 of the charter and bylaw was to recommend to the select board that it be charter changed to have the school committee on the superintendent and also two for the library trustees to hire, fire, and supervise the library director. I was asked about, what I would report back to the select board as to some thinking about it. And I would say, I think if he wanted to, Dave Powell could certainly raise his hand to correct me on anything. But there were some takeaways were that there's the overriding, the trustees think they can supervise the library. There was discussion about the state of politics in the country, that given the state of the politics in the country, not to consolidate power in the town manager. There was also the idea that the library is different from other committees, that it's, they should be able to control this. And I think that was it, Matt. Did I miss something?
Yeah, no, those are the discussion points.
Oh, yeah. And the other point too, I'm sorry, I left out, was that there was a view of discussion of that town meeting would likely be sympathetic to the library trustees' arguments. So that was the thinking. So that I'm speaking there with my hat on as the chair of the Charter and Bylaw. I have different views on it, so I'll let anyone else speak, or I will speak about, Paul Mortenson's views that are not the views of me wearing my Charter and Bylaw hat. So I would welcome anyone to speak before me.
Yeah, so
And I guess I'll start with Sean.
Okay, thanks. I have a question because I heard some other concerns about the idea that appointments, hiring, and firing would be consultation with the boards instead of approval with the boards. With the idea being that, let's say Matt wanted to fire one of the directors that is supporting an elected board, that he could do that even if the board was opposed, and the people I talked to were concerned about that. Can you talk about how that might have come up, or what there's following discussion?
Sure.
Yeah.
So current charter, there's been great confusion historically on it, or I'd say maybe park the confusion. There was some when it was amended in 2019. I don't know if there's been great focus on it, to be quite honest with you. But so charter has been that the town manager can hire, fire, and supervise these different positions, right? So last time around, before a special town meeting, we're going to maybe fool around with that a little bit, and then we did an abrupt stop because, in conjunction with Matt, myself, town council, we figured out, wait a minute, we've been operating under a misconception, right? So fast forward, Matt had put in a new proposal, because I think Matt thinks that, good governance, good municipal governance, and he's here so he can speak for himself, but good governance would have the professional management of the town manager do these things. I think he tried to soften the reality of the town manager having hiring and firing, because I think, was it the firing you put in the consultation, Matt, or the hiring? I forget which.
Really the hiring.
Okay, so the black and white words, I believe at the end of the day it would be the town manager who does the hiring. So Matt threw in the consultation, I think, is a tip of the hat that he would consult with the board, and I think that at the end of the day, any professional town manager is going to obviously listen to the board. He or she will set up a committee to look at who's going to hire this particular position. But at the end of the day, it would be Matt who would have the hiring. And there was discussion, could we make it the consultations a little bit stronger, which was great ideas, but I mean, bottom line, it has to be binary. In the binary, as suggested by Matt, fell on the side of it's town manager who hires. Does that make sense, Sean?
Yeah, I understand the discussion.
Yeah.
The other, I just want to, one other piece of just clarification, if it helps at all, that, is not in the current language is the real clear addition of language that separates out strategic and policy direction of the elected boards, specifically calling out that that does not fall under the town manager's authority. So that's all new language. And so a lot of charters and, the line regarding consultation, that came directly from the Tingsboro Town Manager Act, from where I came with that, basically is that process where the town manager has one or two board members usually involved in the interview process, less than a quorum, but there's involvement from the board. We talked briefly about, could you further define consultation? We probably could. And, Paul and I did offer go to the Board of Health meeting next week to, keep talking to them about whether that could be further refined and whether that would, appease some of their concerns. At the end of the day, it, really came down to, town council recommending, and it's certainly best practice with any that they recommend is to have one person at the end of the day who is ultimately responsible. We could try to define consultation as much as possible, but it can lead to problems when you have two different groups that have to be involved in the hiring and firing. More so on the firing part. The hiring is usually not as much of an issue. Actually, I'm just going to stop there. I'll let the board.
Yeah, and I appreciate, Matt, you and Paul are going to the Board of Health meeting, because what I really hope is something can be worked out so that this isn't presented and then have the Board of Health or any board oppose what's being presented. So I'm hoping a compromise can be found.
So Sean, on that point, think of a few things, right? We let the one, personally, I think it should be all take apart the school committee, because in the superintendent, to me, I think it kind of stands alone. I don't think the town manager should be hiring, firing, and supervising the school superintendent. I mean, that'd be kind of topsy-turvy. I think they have a bigger budget than every other budget almost combined, right? So to me, and plus they have their own town council, they have their own budget. Well, I suppose the other boards have their own budgets, but it's they have their own HR department, etc. I think it should be all or none. I mean, we can either have town manager, professional management of the employees and employment kinds of things, or we can have, I think it should be planning, Board of Health, town assessor, and libraries that manage their employee, hire, fire, and manage. I mean, there's, I think, like our children, every one of those boards is special. So, why should we pick library to be more special than tax assessors? We had a revolution over taxes. Taxes are very important. Board of Health, we had COVID, super important. But on the flip side of it is all or none. On the none side, Matt has a staff meeting with the directors of these departments. And Matt's like, okay. And they're all like, la, 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 you matter to me. Not at all, Matt, because you can't hire, fire, or supervise me. So I'm sympathetic with the Board of Health, but I got to tell you, looking at it, if you're going to go all or none, I'm like, wow, that's a big change. We've had, for quite a long time, things have gone along unruffled. And as a matter of fact, when there was a ruffle and we fooled around with the charter, we went the wrong way with the town assessors, right? We didn't need to change that, right? So, I'm a little bit, I'll just give one other thing. And then I think I'm going to have to step back, because this has gotten to be way too much energy for me, is, this discussion about, the state of the country and too much consolidation of power in the town manager. And for the life of me, I cannot draw a straight line between the state of our country and municipal government in Bedford, Massachusetts. How we govern is a direct result of our elections, and the, select board is elected, and, for every scenario that can be drawn that, there could be a tyrant in the town manager, the town manager would have to be pretty much a lawbreaker in many of the scenarios that are imagined. So I'll just stop there because quite honestly, it's taken up a lot of energy, which I'm happy to give to the town, but it's just become quite interesting. So anyway, I'll stop with that.
I know
Okay, thank you.
it's getting late, Paul. And I don't
Yeah,
wanna-
and it's getting late even more so. Thank you, Terry.
But as a liaison to the library trustees, I've heard, their position. And I just had a question
Mhm.
regarding what we're discussing right now. Was there a meeting that I missed, a private meeting, or was the takeaway that you're presenting now, was that as a result of the bylaw review committee meeting?
Sorry if I wasn't clear, Terry.
No.
The Charter and Bylaw Committee recommended I think it's what in the draft warrant, is that right, Matt?
Yes.
That
Yeah.
the carved out from the town manager's authorities are the hire, fire, and supervise for the superintendent and for the library director. And so I presented that was it. And now what you've heard subsequent to me saying that just a little bit earlier, those reviews of Paul Morton's and yours truly alone.
Okay.
So
Well,
what,
I don't mean to interrupt.
No, keep
but
going, Terry.
From my perspective, what I heard from the library trustees
Mhm.
was that they believe there is, for lack of a better term, a mandate under the statute that they have certain powers over the library.
They do.
And that in that respect, they're different from, other departments that aren't elected and don't have those powers. And so I don't know what the answer is. I'm new here. I'm not an expert on municipal law, but I think that is their position versus whatever we're trying to do with the bylaw and presenting it under the warrant. So
Paul, what are you asking us for tonight? I mean, we're talking about this for the millionth time. We're rehashing the same arguments. I appreciate the update. How can we conclude this piece of business and move on so you're satisfied? Is this looking for more feedback? I think the feedback here is the same as it's been. Like you're on one side of it, they're on the other side. We're ambivalent. It's not really up to us anyway. So what would you like us to do tonight?
Well, I actually disagree. It's not up to you, right? Because we got the charter and bylaw. Told you what the charter and bylaw did, right? You can just pass that through.
Yep.
I'm telling you as a select board member, I think it's unwise, right?
Yep.
And I also think it will be challenged greatly by the Board of Health. I do not blame them. I mean, I think it's intellectually dishonest to say that one group is more deserving of it of another, other than this school committee. I just do. So then, as a select board members, we can make our own decision and say, thank you, Charter and Bylaw. Charter and Bylaw did a great job. However, I have to say, when it's, I don't agree that it should matter for at that level what the thinking of the Charter and Bylaw is, what town meeting will accept. I just don't. I think that's up for this board. Yes, Bopa.
No, and Paul, I agree with you. I'm just trying to figure out how can we what action you want us to take to say we're gonna. I mean, are we deciding tonight if we support
here's what I would do. Okay, and then I'll go to Bopa. We could entirely punt, leave it as is, and then I think with a little small point about the assessors, I think it's the exact correct municipal governance way to go about it. If one of the presentations was we made clearer what the town manager could supervise in what is called out from what the town manager could supervise is the policy issues that the different boards have. And it's quite clear. And as a matter of fact, the power of the library to manage the library, which is, I forget the Mass General Law section, specifically is mentioned. So it's there's a lot of nuance to this, right? But I would leave it as is. I think what we'll get is a petitioner's article in special town meeting, so we could just address it head on. And I, at this point, don't care because it's the amount. No, I don't, because it's always the privilege of town meeting to do what they want. I'll say my piece, but to me, what I said previously, there's, every board has statutory mandates. They could still meet the statutory mandates.
Yep.
Bolby, I think you wanted to speak.
I think you answered my question in what you just said, but I think the thing is, so what's the difference between the library trustee that the charter and bylaw has changed here? Is it because of that mandate or what? Because
no, there's nothing to do with state law as far as I'm concerned.
So basically, so what I'm understanding is that the charter and bylaws committee has made a recommendation to change. I want to make sure
the current charter.
The current charter change the hire and fire of the school committee.
Hire, fire, supervise, yes.
Yep, school committee and library.
Yes.
I understand the school committee, but why the library? Is it because
it's special? And I'm going to sound flip, so I don't want to, sound
no,
flip
you
and
don't,
be a big baby.
but it's just so I just want to understand what was their reasoning. I know obviously Terrence had mentioned something of what they believe, but at the same time, what's the charter and bylaws?
I heard library different. I heard town meeting be sympathetic, and I also heard that the political situation in the country right now. Can I just add one thing to this group? Is again, I think it's just governance that makes sense. I would point out, Googling, and I assume it's correct, for Concord and Arlington. Concord and Arlington, not exactly crazy towns. The town manager, with approval of the select board, puts in place the library trustees. And then the town manager appoints a director. That's Arlington. And then the select board appoints the trustees in Concord. Not exactly, I guess it is a Homer revolution, but it's like pretty staid now. So, in Concord, it is the town manager who appoints the directors, I think. Again, Google. So, I mean, this is not, fantastic stuff. I think it would be, the minority in the state, but this is what I found. So I'm actually, honestly, I'm not going to say another word about it. I'd prefer to leave it as is. And you guys can cogitate on more. I don't think we have to decide tonight, but that's kind of a brain dump. And my apologies if I misstated anything from our meeting on Wednesday. That's not my intent. Okay, so we can just kick the can down the road. We don't have to talk about it anymore tonight. I will go with Matt to the Board of Health on Monday.
Yeah, good. And can I just make one comment, Paul? Just because I know I believe Padma's listening, and I think I'd corresponded by email, but just we had tried a few times with to get her at one of the two charter and bylaw committee meetings, but they happened pretty quick. She wasn't able to attend, but we did have a couple other members at the two meetings who did speak. And at the last meeting last Wednesday, we did note to all the members that there was a standing request to have an additional meeting, but the only reason that they didn't ultimately have a meeting with the full board of trustees is because they voted, as Paul mentioned, 4-1 to sort of give them the language of the director. So they said, we're recommending what you're asking for. So they wanted to disband. So it wasn't that they didn't want to meet. They, by 4-1, we're giving them what they wanted. And that's the only reason they didn't feel it was necessary to meet anymore. But certainly, I just wanted to make clear that it was really just a scheduling, issue, and there was still quite a bit of discussion. And that was that.
Okay. Anything
Yeah,
else?
No.
Yeah, I'm just still kind of confused of why, I think the thing is if we're gonna look at it, if we're gonna look at it in a way where I think it should all be consistent, like why just the library on there?
So, I agree. By the way, I think we could spend all night comparing and contrasting the different boards, and all of us make excellent points, right? So they are special. I mean, who doesn't love a library, right? But I would say all the others are special. I think they might say, someone might say, oh, the library is farthest flung from a town manager's expertise. Well, quite honestly, I don't think Matt's a fire expert. I don't think he's a police expert or DPW expert. So that doesn't resonate with me. But I do think it's a point I heard from that. Matt, I mean, do you see them as other than everyone special in terms of your ability to assist making it, better for the town having professional management?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at how other communities' charters are written, I think to your point, Paul, when you find examples, there's no real great rhyme or reason across the state. As more and more communities have, gone from selectmen to select boards, and then with executive secretaries to town administrators and town managers, and having boards go from pretty much all elected to more and more appointed, having treasurer collectors and clerks and others from elected to appointed. That's been an entire wave going on for 50 to 100 years, and so it's a real hodgepodge across the state. There's no true gold standard. It really comes down to town meeting and what communities are comfortable with at the end of the day. When the charter committee asked me, from a practical perspective, I view all the staff outside of the school department, from a practical sense, are the same in my mind.
Yeah, that's what I would think, and I would agree with, because I just feel like why just choose one and just, so I don't, but I think it's either. I also agree that it's just the school, I wouldn't imagine you hiring the superintendent or managing the schools. But I don't understand why it's just the library on there and no one else. I think it's either all or you treat it the same way. And I think if we talk about political environment and things like that, it could be like I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. It could be the same thing where, election happens, and then anyone could be running for elected office. And again, I may not be explaining this correctly, but the thing is that, if it's anyone that want to run for library, and it could be the other way or whatever, we'd be worried about that as well. That so it could go either way, and I see pros and cons for both. But I just feel like, I don't understand why you choose one, or the committee chose one and not the other, or
Thank you, Bopa. I could keep talking, but I'll stop. Matt, what else we have other than that? We'll take that one down. We'll talk about it more next time we talk about the warrant.
Other than TAC, there was maybe one sentence added to the sign bylaw provision. If I can just go to that, it was really minor. We're adding a waiver provision to the sign bylaw here. They just added the sentence. So this was last year, recommended at town meeting. The ZBA chose this year to add that such waiver shall be limited to dimensional changes in relation to sign location and or sign size. I'll just point that out as another small change. And I think that's basically it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Oh, I did see that Padma's hand was up.
Sure. I think we can have Padma speak.
You should be good, Padma.
Hi there, can you still see me?
We can.
Okay,
We can hear you.
I understand that it's late and I don't want to keep everyone. I just wanted to, I have a lot to say. Like Paul said, we could talk about this forever, but I wanted to address Bopa's point about why we think it's all or none. So obviously, of the two amendments, we're happy with the amendment that the Charter and Bylaw Committee put forward between those two amendments. But I think it goes back to what I said when I appeared before the Select Board a few months ago. So historically, we have not been doing it where the town manager has appointment and supervision and firing power over all of these independent boards. Historically, the boards have been doing it themselves. I think it was the same firm that came to that conclusion and made the appointment for assessors board a few years ago. When that happened, that's why there was an amendment to change the charter to include that language, because previously it had never been read in that the town manager had that power. Now, since I think August or September, there was a new interpretation by the same firm that had done the amendment before, saying that town manager has that power. So we're only asking library be carved out because we think library should never have been put in. But I agree with you, Bopa, that I think it should be all or none, and I think it should be none. I think we should go back to the way that it was before this new interpretation. What we had asked for was a second opinion, and I know we got a verbal opinion. I mean, I use the word I am a lawyer, so I use the word opinion lightly. Like it was a verbal. Somebody verbally said that there is confusion. We should clear it up. But I think this clearing it up goes too far. I think we should, clear up what the administrative powers that go to town manager for HR type issues are. But substantively, like the supervision of those department heads should lie with the departments, or lie with the boards that are elected specifically to appoint and supervise those departments. So that's the point that I just wanted to make. Thank you.
So, Padma, this definitely is not going to be point counterpoint. I disagree with the supposition of facts. I just do. So,
you didn't. I mean, Paul. So when the town
This
council
is not a public hearing. This is not a public hearing, guys.
I understand that, but when
I'll let Padma have. Hold on, Padma.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you the last word, but I don't really want to argue about it, or we're not going to agree. But you have the last word.
So all I'm saying, so this is the same, and I understand that it's not a public hearing, but so with this amendment, we are accepting the town council's new opinion, which was a surprise to everyone, including Paul, I believe you and Matt, when the opinion came out, because that's why initially we were talking about pulling the amendment and leaving the language as is where the boards had the power. And that town council's opinion changed the way that interpretation lies. So it's not that the history has always been that the town manager had that power. Like that's a new interpretation as of September, I believe it was. So that's not, I think it's inaccurate to represent that as that's the way that it's always been. And I believe the town council was the same firm that did the amendment to include that power for the assessor board a few years ago, whenever that change happened. So they did think that the amendment was necessary in that case.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else, Matt, on this?
No.
Okay. We're done with this for the warrant for tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
300. Yeah.
Moving on.
Great. Looking for ratification of the finance director appointment. I have a memo in your packet, hoping to pull up. Just to give him his here. Great. Looking to have Al Rigo, the current Tewksbury Finance Director, start effective February 23rd, 2026. Al has great municipal and private sector and state experience. He's been with the town of Tewksbury for over 5 years. Great references from current and former manager there, current staff there, previously served in DESE, budget director in Stoneham, budget analyst in Cambridge. He has an MBA from Suffolk University and lots of munis experience. So we think he's going to be an excellent fit.
Does anyone on the board have any questions for Matt?
I was going to have a question for Al if he was here, not for Matt, but it's.
We're being kind and not having.
I'll ask Al another time.
Yeah.
He has Okta experience, so I was wondering about Okta. But anyways, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Anyone other than Bopa with a question for Matt?
No, but great fun.
Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I move that the board ratifies the town manager's appointment of Al Rigo as the town of Bedford's finance director with an effective start date of February 23rd, 2026.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's seconded by Dan. Matt, thank you for such a great find. I think Al is going to be a keeper. Paul is and I, Bopa.
Yes.
Okay. Was that a yes to Al or yes?
Yes, yes, yes. Yep.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yes for everything.
Dan?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Terrence?
Aye.
Aye. So that's 5-0. And congratulations, Al. And thank you again, Matt.
Great. So on the consent, just want to like the only point of note on the town election warrant is likely have you sign this week. Still need to incorporate some minor town council edits into the summary of the proposed charter amendments. But just for the public to be aware, the AG's office reviewing our special town meeting warrant did ask that the 3 items that were approved in the charter change at town meeting did go on this year's warrant. I think originally we were hoping to hold off until we had finished the rest of the charter changes so we could do them all at once, and or if there was some reconsideration that could change. But they had requested that if they were approved at town meeting, you should be putting them on your next warrant. I don't think it's your next election warrant, that is. So that is in there. And just a reminder to the town and the board of what those 3 that were approved were. They were the elimination of the Petitioners Advisory Committee, adjusting select board appointments for Veterans Agent and Veteran Service Officer, and adding that line to the duties of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee. So that'll be the one question on the warrant. So when you approve the consent tonight, if you could just approve it subject to final town council review of the warrant language, that'd be great.
Does someone wish to make that motion?
I just have a question, just because I'm curious, even though this may sound ridiculous, but what would it be happen if we didn't approve this? Would we not have an election?
Yeah. I have had that come up once before, these sort of mandatory things we have to do. The only thing I can think of is if you would essentially, if you become a dysfunctional town, the state can essentially, through some power, assign someone to go in and do these types of certain duties. If we decided to just not meet or not hold elections or not balance our budget, sometime you essentially go into like some type of receivership. I think that's my best non-specific answer.
But would it be for all these members who would be getting elected that would be operating hardly at a quorum? I mean, would just barely be able to make quorum.
Yeah.
Right,
So
because the term ends, right?
Yeah, term ends. So yeah.
So
you missed me.
So please approve it.
So I move that we approve the consent agenda subject to town council's feedback for the town election warrant.
Yeah,
that
perfect.
enough?
That's perfect, Bopa.
Second.
Okay, Paul and I, Bopa,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And Terry?
Yes.
And that was an excellent question, Sean.
I just was curious. I had to ask.
Okay. Town manager's report. Matt, what do you got for us?
Great. This will go out to a lot of people when we publish it tomorrow. So I'll just go through it quickly because I know it's getting very late. We have a link here if you'd like to sign up for the printed copy of the warrant. Otherwise, we're getting the postcard with the QR code. Want to keep updating you on the great progress. The fire station steel frame is nearly complete. I'm sure everyone can see that. We are still on track and on budget. So that's like the really short update. I almost wish I had more to tell you, but I'm sure many of you drive by it pretty frequently. The project's going very well. The solar consultants have the plans for that. We'll be signing an LOI, very, very quickly, but we are, planning for solar to be on the top of that building as was approved at the last fall town meeting. So that process is continuing as well. Public Works is excited to announce food waste diversion subscribers will see the first installment of utility credits posted on their water sewer accounts soon. Let's see. The Bedford Health Department received a limited supply of at-home COVID test kits, which will be made available, a limit of 2 kits per household. And tests were fully distributed within 24 hours. You can buy additional kits at your local pharmacy.
Matt,
sorry?
You're going to get any more?
Ooh, I haven't asked that specific question. I'll find out. The RHSO, our Regional Housing Services Agency, is utilizing some funds through the Federal Home Consortium program to offer a new rent relief program. So we'll provide up to 12 months of assistance to low-income households, and we'll be able to support between 4 and 6 households. The applications are going to be released next month. So if you know someone in need, please let them know that this new program is coming out. This is something, unique to Bedford and a few communities that have utilized these funds. This is not something that, the general public would be aware of because not every community, does these great, types of programs. So a lot of people just may not know they're available. The Cultural District has submitted a CPC application to make some improvements to the patio area at 10 and 12 Mudge Way. So we'll be hearing more about that soon. Cultural District is scheduled to receive a $15,000 grant from MCC, and these funds will be used to help get the new song concert series started. What a great first year, and really looking forward to the second year. Dollars for Scholars Trivia Night. Watch out for the select board team on February 7th. They're looking to reclaim their title. We have a link to log in here. You can have a team of up to 10 individuals. Congratulations to Brian Vitale and Tyler Carlamu, who graduated on January 9th from the Fire Academy. And Ryan Foley with the Facilities Department celebrating 30 years with the town of Bedford. Wonderful achievement and milestone. And our last page is spotlights. So all set.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Liaison stuff. The only liaison report I have is your liaison to getting us signed up for the Bedford Dollars for Scholars. We're signed up. I forget who said yes, but I think I'll probably send out a text to you guys, which won't break open meeting law because it's about trivia, is to see how many you want. I think it's select board members 2 apiece if you want. If you want to go solo, that's fine as well. And if you're going to go solo, you could always think about bringing a ringer because sadly enough, we don't have the ringer we've previously had.
Has she been claimed by a different team? Because we can just re-ring that.
So you assume, and bad things happen.
If she's willing.
It's her progeny who was the ringer.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So I'm being
Johnny
very
Mac did do
cryptic
a good
here
job.
because I don't because I'm a class act, but it's her progeny who was good. So anyway, that's it. Dan, you're on. Any?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I have is at the ESC meeting, there was some discussion about, given the state of the PPA leases being 25 years, not 20, there was a question about if they need to get a reauthorization from town meeting on the extended length of the contract, Matt. And the question was sent your way about whether or not they had to go on the warrant or not. Do you have an update on that one?
I don't know that I got specific request, or apologies if I missed that, but
It
we're
was,
not.
it was from Aaron the day after. It was like, do we need to get reauthorization for a longer contract if it's more than 20 years for the purchase agreement?
Oh, right. But I'll look into that. But I mean, we're not going to be doing the PPA. We're only going to be doing the we're going to be doing direct purchase. So I don't.
Okay.
I think we're all set.
No additional action will be needed. Thank you very much. That's my only question / update / not really an update.
Okay, thank you. Bopa, anything from you?
Yes, so I was able to attend BARC, but I couldn't attend the full meeting. But the main thing that they really talked about was, as you know, Elizabeth is on the Wilson Park. Elizabeth Knox from BARC committee is a representative for the Wilson Park ad hoc committee, and she had shared with the BARC committee about what's going on and the discussion there. So.
Yep. Very good. Thank you. Terry, anything from you?
Just one thing. I'm the liaison to the Cultural Council, which recently completed its FY25 grants. Did another excellent job. So it's on to FY26.
Excellent. And Sean, anything from you?
Yeah, so the CPC met last Thursday with a public hearing, and it was to finalize the ask for town meeting for the CPC budget. The big ticket items are the construction of the town common. So you probably remember we previously approved the study for that, and there have been some walkthroughs and stuff, and then also money to replenish the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. This week, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee meets on, I believe it is Thursday, and that work's going to continue to ongo, but there still is opportunity to get involved with your ideas if people want to do that.
Okay, excellent. I think now we're left with only one motion.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a
second.
second?
Are we not going to executive session?
Oh, shoot.
Do we have?
It is on the agenda.
I messed up.
If so, I move that we adjourn into executive session, not to reopen this
Do
evening for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Am I
Unless that's not happening.
No, I didn't see it on the agenda.
I don't.
Am I looking at the wrong one?
I think.
I think that was last.
Yeah, I think you are. Because I don't see
You know
it
what?
on the
I'm wrong
agenda.
every day. I'm wrong every day. So
you're
Paul,
in good
you had
company.
me going there for a second. Maybe I was right.
You
In that
had me
case, I move
scared
that we
because I'm
adjourn.
like, oh shoot, did I not see it?
Let's just
You
be
were
happy
scared,
that-
Bopa. I'm the one who's scared.
Like, oh my God.
All right. So I think I heard a motion and a
I
second.
move that we adjourn.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Bopa, give me a second. Okay. Paul is a yes. Bopa, you are.
Yes.
Terrence?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Dan?
Humbly asserted, yes.
Okay. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so
Good
much.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good
Bye.
night.
Okay, bye.